The snowstorm over Manhattan wasn't supposed to hit until midnight, yet by 7 o'clock the city was already drowning in white. Park Avenue shimmered under layers of frost, Christmas lights glowing like distant embers. Inside Damian Blackwood's penthouse, 40 floors above the street, the air was warm, bright, and painfully elegant. Crystal glasses clinked, violins played softly, and guests in designer gowns floated across marble floors like moving ornaments. But all that luxury collapsed the moment Damian stepped onto the terrace corridor and froze. A small shape huddled outside the service exit, bare-armed, trembling violently, snow gathering in her hair like shards of glass. Maddie Carter, his maid, 24, too kind for her own good, too invisible for a world that devoured gentle souls. Her fingers were blue. Her breath came in broken gasps. And God, she wasn't even wearing a coat. Damian's jaw locked, a slow, lethal shift that made the veins in his neck rise. He didn't shout often. He didn't need to. But in that instant, something primal snapped inside him. Because no one, not in his home, not under his roof, should ever look this fragile, this discarded, especially not Maddie. He pushed the door open, icy wind slamming into his chest. Maddie! His voice wasn't controlled anymore. It was fear sharpened into command. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled. Damian caught her before she hit the concrete. Her skin was freezing, too cold, terrifyingly cold. "What happened to you?" he demanded, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. She opened her mouth, but her teeth chattered too hard for words. Behind him, the quartet continued playing, oblivious. Laughter spilled from the dining hall. Expensive perfumes drifted by the hallway vents. None of it touched him anymore. Only her. He scooped Maddie into his arms light, freezing, barely conscious, and carried her back inside. Guests turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. A senator's wife gasped. Someone whispered, "Is she hurt?" But Damian's eyes were locked on one person, Evelyn Drake, his fiancée-to-be, draped in silver silk, perfect posture, perfect poise, perfect lie. Her expression didn't match the room's shock. No fear, no concern, just a slow blink, a touch of annoyance, and a smile too thin to be sympathy. Damian's voice sliced through the murmurs. "Who sent her outside?" A silence thick as smoke filled the penthouse. Evelyn lifted her champagne glass. Perhaps the help needs reminders about boundaries. Damian stopped walking, slowly, deliberately. Every muscle in his body tightened like steel pulled through fire. "Evelyn," he said, voice barely human, "tell me exactly what you did." Her smile froze, and the entire room realized too late that this Christmas dinner was about to become a war. Because when Maddie finally whispered the truth, everything inside Damian exploded. Madeline Carter had learned, far too young, that life never handed out mercy. It made you wrestle for every inch of it. And most days she was already exhausted before the sun even rose. Hours before the Christmas gala disaster, she'd stood inside her tiny studio apartment in Jersey City, breath fogging in the cold air because the heater had died again. The landlord kept promising repairs, but promises didn't keep old walls warm. Maddie pulled her thin coat tighter while packing sandwiches into a lunchbox for her grandfather's treatment the next day. His prescriptions lined up beside the sink in orange bottles cost more each month. Insurance barely covered anything. If not for her seasonal cleaning job at the Blackwood penthouse, they wouldn't have made rent at all. Her phone buzzed an overdue notice from the hospital. Another, and another. She pressed her thumb against her temple, fighting the pressure behind her eyes. "Not tonight," she whispered to herself. "Hold it together." She reached for her old iPhone screen cracked like a spiderweb and opened the budgeting app she updated religiously. Red numbers everywhere. December always crushed her. Holiday shifts meant tips, but the cost of winter, medicine, groceries, the math never worked. Still, she pushed through because she had to, because no one else would. Before leaving for work, Maddie slipped her battered Kindle into her tote. Reading was the only thing that made her world feel bigger than overdue bills. A scratched copy of Women Who Run with the Wolves sat half open on the screen, a reminder that survival didn't make someone weak, it made them fierce. She caught the PATH train into Manhattan, pressed between Wall Street commuters in polished coats and pristine leather gloves. She always kept her gaze down, afraid someone might somehow see her reality clinging to her clothes. When the train surfaced from the tunnel, the skyline rose in front of her, sharp, glittering, unreachable. The penthouse lobby smelled of pine garlands and polished marble. Wealth everywhere, heavy and effortless. Maddie kept her posture straight, her steps quiet. She was invisible here. That was the safest way to survive. At least it used to be. She didn't know Evelyn Drake was watching her that night, or that a single whispered command from that woman would send her spiraling into the cold. And Maddie had no idea that the snowstorm was only the beginning because someone else had plans for her downfall. Damian Blackwood built his empire on silence, the kind of silence that made boardrooms tremble and enemies vanish. On the 38th floor of the Blackwood Investment Tower, that silence filled every inch of his office, broken only by the soft scratch of a Mont Blanc pen, signing contracts worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. The city glittered below him. Manhattan in December always looked like a promise wrapped in cold steel and warm light. But Damian didn't believe in promises. Not anymore. Across the room, his assistant reviewed the final details of the Blackwood Hotel's acquisition. Mr. Blackwood, the Ritz-Carlton partnership team, will join the dinner tonight. They're expecting a statement from you. He nodded absently, flipping the page. Corporate mergers, stock projections, asset transfers. His world was predictable, logical, controllable, until it wasn't. His phone buzzed. Evelyn Drake. He hesitated before answering. "Damian," her voice purred, the practiced smoothness of someone trained to manipulate. "Everything's ready for tonight. The guest list, the media contacts, the donors. But your maid, she seemed overwhelmed. Perhaps you should remind her of her place before she embarrasses your brand." Damian's grip tightened around the pen, ink pooling in a darker blot on the contract. "She's doing her job," he said flatly. Evelyn laughed softly. "Yes, but some people don't belong in our world. You know that better than anyone." The line went silent for a beat. He ended the call without replying. Belonging. The one concept he had spent his life rejecting. His family raised him like a weapon, precise, deadly, emotionless. Love was a liability. Trust was a weakness. The world respected power, not vulnerability, and Damian had learned the cost of letting someone close. He had buried that lesson 6 years ago beside the one person he'd ever allowed into his life. He closed the file, jaw ticking. He needed the Christmas gala to be perfect. Investors, politicians, foreign partners, every handshake tonight would shift the future of the Blackwood Empire. There was no room for chaos, no room for mistakes, no room for warmth. And yet, when he'd passed Maddie earlier, carrying garlands through the hall, her smile-small, tired, unguarded had shaken something old and forgotten inside him, something dangerous, something human. He didn't know it yet, but before the night ended, that forgotten part of him would detonate because Maddie was about to collide with his world in a way no one could control. The Christmas gala at the Blackwood penthouse wasn't simply a party. It was a spectacle designed to impress Wall Street, politicians, foreign investors, and every power player who wanted a seat near Damian Blackwood's orbit. The space looked like a page torn from a luxury magazine, towering white florals, golden lights reflecting off baccarat crystal, the Manhattan skyline stretching like a kingdom beneath the windows. A private catering team from the Plaza Hotel glided between guests, carrying trays of caviar and champagne. Maddie moved quietly along the edges of the room, adjusting garlands, checking candles, making sure the buffet remained flawless. Every glance she cast was careful, measured. She knew how fragile her job was. She knew one mistake could push her and her grandfather into disaster. But Evelyn Drake watched her with a different awareness, sharp, predatory, calculating. Evelyn wore a silver gown that shimmered like ice under the lights, her posture elegant as she greeted guests with polished charm. She had spent years crafting this persona, Manhattan royalty, untouchable, adored. But the moment Maddie accidentally passed too close, Evelyn's smile thinned into a blade. "Maddie," she murmured sweetly, placing a manicured hand on the girl's arm, "you're tracking snow onto the marble. Do be mindful, some people here paid more for their shoes than you earn in a month." Maddie lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll be more careful." "Oh, I'm sure you will." Evelyn's eyes glinted. "We can't have you ruining Damien's evening." A few guests glanced over curiosity, pity, judgment. Maddie felt heat rise in her throat, but she swallowed it, forcing steady breaths. This job was survival. She couldn't react. She couldn't afford to. "Actually," Evelyn continued, tilting her champagne flute, "I think you've done enough for the night. Why don't you slip out the service exit? The important guests are arriving soon and we can't have distractions." Maddie froze. "But I haven't completed my tasks yet." Evelyn's smile sharpened. It wasn't a suggestion. Maddie hesitated only a moment before nodding. She stepped toward the back corridor, unaware that Evelyn had already texted security. "Lock the service exit behind her." As Maddie pushed open the heavy door, icy wind slammed into her chest. Snow whipped across the narrow terrace, burning her skin instantly. She reached for the handle. It clicked from the other side. Locked. Her breath hitched. Inside, laughter swelled. Music floated. Glasses clinked, and Maddie Carter, wearing nothing but a thin uniform, stood alone as the storm swallowed her. And from the shadows above, someone unseen watched, waiting for her collapse. The moment Damien stepped away from the crowd, intending only to take a brief call from a Dubai investor, he felt a strange disturbance in the air. The service hallway was colder than it should have been, draft slipping under the door like a warning. Something was wrong. Then he saw it. A smear of snow across the marble floor, a faint imprint of a small shoe, and the service exit slightly ajar. His pulse kicked. He pushed the door open and the world slammed into him in a rush of ice. There, collapsed against the terrace wall, was Maddie, her body curled inward, shaking violently, her uniform soaked through. Snow clung to her eyelashes like frost on glass. She looked like she had been out there for hours instead of minutes, fragile, fading, wrong. Damien's heart, usually cold steel, cracked open. "Maddie!" His voice tore through the wind, her head lifted weakly. "Mr. Blackwood." "I didn't want to cause trouble." Trouble. That word burned him. He stripped off his coat and wrapped it around her, pulling her into his arms. The chill of her skin terrified him. He could feel bones, trembling muscles, fading strength, things she shouldn't have had to endure. Not here. Not in his home. Someone had done this to her. On purpose. He carried her inside, the warmth hitting them like a shock. Gasps rippled across the room. Guests stared, frozen mid-conversation. Champagne glasses lowered. A senator's wife dropped her clutch. Damien didn't care. He scanned the room until his gaze collided with Evelyn's. Her smile faltered. "What happened?" she asked innocently, too innocently. Damien's jaw ground tight. She was locked outside, in a blizzard. A hush fell so heavy it felt physical. Evelyn blinked, feigning confusion. "Oh dear, that sounds like an accident." "An accident?" Damien's voice dropped to something dangerous. Who gave the order to send her out? No one answered. The quartet stopped playing. Even the city lights outside seemed to hold their breath. Evelyn tilted her head. "Darling, you're overreacting. She's the help." "She must have choose your next words carefully," Damien warned. Evelyn's lips parted, but before she could speak, Maddie whispered, eyes barely open. "She told me to leave, and that was the match." In one terrifying instant, every ounce of restraint Damien possessed shattered, and the room felt the moment the Mafia king finally broke. The chaos of the gala simmered into a sharp, icy silence as Damien carried Maddie toward the guest suite. Every pair of eyes followed them, wide and rattled. Power brokers who once bragged about surviving federal investigations now stood frozen, unsure whether they had just witnessed the beginning of a political scandal or a war. When the door clicked shut behind them, the sounds of the party vanished. Damien laid Maddie gently on the velvet chaise, kneeling beside her as he checked her pulse, faint but steady. Her skin was still cold, too cold. He grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders, anger curling through him like smoke. "Maddie," he said softly, "why didn't you call for help?" "I wasn't allowed," she whispered. Her voice was paper thin. She said I'd embarrass the guests, that I should stay out of sight. A tremor of guilt hit him hard. He had built this world of perfection, spotless, glittering, merciless. He had allowed Evelyn to run it unchecked. And Maddie, gentle, hard-working Maddie, had paid the price. "You did nothing wrong," he said, his voice rougher than intended, but her eyes, glassy from the cold, shifted away. "I don't want trouble. Please don't confront her because of me." The look in her eyes, fear mixed with resignation, stabbed deeper than he expected. He brushed a damp strand of hair from her cheek. "Trouble found you, Maddie. You didn't choose this." Before she could respond, the door opened without knocking. Evelyn Drake stepped inside, closing it behind her with a click that sounded like a blade. Her smile was slow, poisonous. "Well," she said, looking Maddie over like inspecting damaged merchandise, "you certainly know how to create drama." "Get out!" Damien snapped, rising to his full height. But Evelyn wasn't intimidated. She walked closer, her heels tapping like a countdown. She bent slightly toward Maddie, voice dropping into a whisper only the three of them could hear. "You think this is unfair?" she murmured. "Trust me, sweetheart, it can get much worse. People like you don't survive long in our world." Maddie flinched. Damien stepped between them instantly, fury radiating off him. "If you threaten her again," Evelyn's eyes glittered, victorious. "Oh, Damien, I'm not threatening her." Then she leaned closer, breath cold as snow. "I'm promising what comes next." And in that moment, Maddie realized something terrifying. Evelyn wasn't finished with her, not even close. Damien rarely allowed himself the luxury of emotion. Men like him were built from steel, not softness, forged through betrayal, not comfort. Yet as he stood in the dimly lit suite, watching Maddie struggle to sit up beneath the heavy blanket, something inside him shifted, subtle at first, then violently clear. He cared, too much, too suddenly, too dangerously. "I shouldn't have been outside," Maddie murmured, guilt threading through her voice like a bruise. "I think I misunderstood where Evelyn wanted me to—" "No," Damien cut in, sharper than intended. "You didn't misunderstand anything." She froze. Her hands tightened around the blanket. He exhaled, forcing his voice to soften. "Maddie, look at me." When she finally lifted her gaze, he felt something in his chest pull tight an ache he hadn't felt in years. Her eyes were wide, tired, but still holding that quiet strength he'd noticed since the day she started working for him. "You followed an order because you were afraid of losing your job," he said, "not because you deserved to be treated that way." Her lips parted slightly. People like Evelyn, women like her, they're used to being in control. "And I'm just— don't," he snapped. "Don't finish that sentence." She blinked, startled by the intensity in his voice. "You are not just anything." His tone dropped, low and ground-shaking. "You work harder than half the people in this penthouse? You carry more weight than Evelyn Drake could handle in a lifetime, and you were out there freezing because someone wanted to hurt you, not because you were insignificant." A breath escaped her, shaky, almost disbelieving. He stepped closer, lowering himself so they were eye level. "You matter, whether you believe it right now or not." Silence settled between them, soft, heavy, emotional. Then her voice broke gently. "No one's ever said that to me. Damien's jaw clenched not because of anger at her, but fury at a world that had failed her so completely. He reached for a glass of warm water, helping her lift it to her lips. His fingers brushed hers light. Accidental, but electric. Maddie's breath hitched. Damien's eyes darkened, the air tightening with something unspoken. Dangerous. Undeniable. A knock shattered the moment. Evelyn's voice slid through the door like ice. "Damien, we need to talk. Now." And the way she said it made one thing painfully clear. Whatever Evelyn was planning next would be far worse than the snowstorm. The gala noise faded the moment Damien guided Maddie into the oversized penthouse kitchen, a space glowing softly beneath rows of pendant lights. The room smelled of cinnamon, roasted pine nuts, and freshly baked brioche warm scents that wrapped around her far more gently than the blanket on her shoulders. "Sit," Damien ordered, but the edge in his voice was gone. It wasn't power speaking now, it was something quieter, something he wasn't used to feeling. Maddie eased onto a stool near the marble island. Her fingers were still trembling from the cold, or perhaps from the weight of everything Evelyn had whispered. Damien turned away for a moment, grabbing a kettle and filling it with water. His movements were controlled, measured, but she noticed the tension in his shoulders. He was furious, not at her, for her. That truth alone made her chest tighten. He placed a warm cup between her hands. Chamomile. She didn't know how he knew that was her favorite, but somehow he did. "You should have never been put outside," he said, voice low. "Had I not stepped away—" "You aren't responsible for everything," she replied softly. His eyes snapped to hers. "In my home, I am." A beat of silence, thick, loaded. She looked around the kitchen, the gleaming appliances, the spotless counters, the view of the Manhattan skyline spilling light across steel surfaces. This world didn't belong to her. She didn't even brush against its edges without consequence. People like Evelyn Maddie began hesitant. "They don't need a reason to hate someone like me. I'm replaceable." Damien stepped closer, expression darkening with something dangerous. "Don't ever call yourself that again," he said. "Evelyn's cruelty is not a measure of your worth, but she has power," Maddie murmured. "And I don't?" Damien countered sharply. She swallowed. "That's not what I meant." His voice softened, almost unexpectedly. "I know." He leaned against the counter near her, crossing his arms. The air thickened between them, an invisible pull that neither of them acknowledged, yet neither resisted. "Shall try again," Damien said quietly. "Evelyn doesn't fail gracefully." Maddie's breath stilled. "What do you mean?" Damien glanced toward the hallway, jaw tightening. "It means you're in danger, Maddie, and I intend to make sure nothing and no one touches you again." Her heart pounded. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something far more complicated. Before she could respond, Damien straightened abruptly, head lifting. He'd sensed something. Someone. Because a moment later, a shadow appeared in the doorway watching them, listening. And Maddie realized they weren't alone. The shadow in the doorway shifted, and the soft kitchen lights revealed Marcus Hale Damien's head of security. Broad-shouldered, stone-faced, a man who didn't flinch even when bullets flew. Tonight, though, his stern gaze flicked from Maddie to Damien with a hint of unease. "Sir," Marcus said quietly, "guests are asking questions. Evelyn is stirring things." Damien's expression iced over. "What is she telling them?" "That your maid staged a scene," Marcus replied. "That she faked being locked outside to get your attention." Maddie inhaled sharply. "What? Why would she?" "Because humiliation is Evelyn's favorite language," Damien muttered. He pushed off the counter, rage simmering beneath every movement. "She thinks she can rewrite what happened. She thinks I'll let her." Marcus hesitated. "Some guests overheard her implying Maddie has been seeking favors from you." Maddie went still. Damien's jaw clenched so tightly the muscle near his temple jumped. "She said that in my home?" Marcus nodded. And people believe her. Evelyn controls half the media circles here. She knows how to twist a narrative fast. Maddie's stomach twisted. Mr. Blackwood, I can leave. If it protects you, I'll go right now. Damien turned to her so fast she flinched. No. The word cracked through the air like thunder. You're not leaving because of a lie, he said, voice low, dangerous. And you're not taking the blame for something someone else did to you. She folded her hands, trying to steady them. But this is your event, your reputation. People will think I don't care what they think, Damien cut in. I care about the truth. Marcus watched them quietly, something unreadable crossing his features, as if he, too, sensed the shift happening between them. Damien took a slow breath, then straightened. Let them talk. I'll handle Evelyn. Maddie tugged the blanket tighter. She won't stop. You know she won't. That's exactly why I'm ending this tonight. Marcus stepped aside as Damien moved toward the exit, but before he left the room, he turned back, meeting Maddie's eyes with a promise that made her pulse stumble. No one touches you, he said softly. Not while I'm breathing. Then he disappeared into the hallway, his footsteps echoing like the start of a storm. Marcus exhaled. You've changed him, he murmured. Maddie shook her head. I didn't do anything. Marcus looked at her, almost sympathetic. That's the problem. Because outside the kitchen, Evelyn was already assembling an audience ready to strike first. Damien hadn't even reached the ballroom when a tremor of uneasy whispers rolled through the crowd. Guests parted the way instinctively, like they sensed the danger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Evelyn stood at the center of a tightening circle, radiant, poised, and poisonous. She lifted a velvet display box, the kind used for museum-level valuables. Inside it lay a men's Patek Philippe watch, one of their guests' rare collectibles, valued higher than most apartments in Manhattan. Her voice was honeyed venom. It's truly unfortunate, Damien. Your little maid was caught with this in her cleaning cart. A ripple of shock surged across the room. Damien didn't blink. Where is the guest who owns it? An older businessman stepped forward, face pale. I left it in the lounge while taking a call. Your staff found it in her supplies. Several guests gasped. Someone murmured, so she has trouble. Damien's gaze darkened into something lethal. Maddie would never steal. Evelyn arched a brow. Darling, loyalty is admirable, but facts are facts. Marcus appeared beside Damien, discreetly handing him a folded note. Found this on the maid's cart too, sir. Damien scanned it, then his jaw tightened. A typed message. I'm sorry. I needed the money. Please don't fire me. Evelyn let out a sympathetic sigh. People under financial stress can be desperate. It's not her fault she comes from nothing. Damien stepped closer, voice quiet enough to terrify. Who exactly discovered the watch? Evelyn's smile stretched. I did. Of course she did. He lifted the box, examining it closely. And there it was, the detail only someone trained to notice would catch. A faint smudge on the glass. Foundation, not Maddie's shade. Damien handed the box back slowly. Your story has a problem. Evelyn blinked. Excuse me? You said it was found in her cart, yet the watch is spotless except for the makeup smudge someone left while planting it. The room tensed. And, Damien continued, my staff doesn't write notes on printer paper. They use Blackwood stationery. A murmur of doubt rippled through the guests. Evelyn's mask faltered, but only for a breath. Oh, Damien, she whispered sweetly, you can't protect her forever. He stepped closer until their faces were inches apart. Watch me. Because what Damien didn't know yet was this. The watch was only the beginning. Evelyn had planned something far more devastating, something that would strike Maddie where she was weakest. The accusations didn't end when Damien dismantled Evelyn's staged theft. If anything, Evelyn only escalated. Whispers slithered through the ballroom like cigarette smoke, thin, poisonous, impossible to contain. Maddie, still wrapped in Damien's coat, stood near the kitchen entrance, trembling not from the cold now, but from humiliation. She could hear them. Pathetic how she clings to him. Women like her always try to seduce their way up. Maybe she did steal the watch. Damien's gone soft, dangerously soft. Each word struck her like a frostbitten slap. When Damien returned, the room fell into expectant silence. He didn't look at the guests. He looked at her. "Maddie," he said gently, "come with me. You're not staying here another minute." Her throat tightened. "Mr. Blackwood, I think I should go home." "You are home," he answered without hesitation. The guests reacted as if he'd fired a gun. Gasps, shocked murmurs, eyebrows rising like synchronized choreography. Evelyn stepped forward, voice trembling with perfectly crafted outrage. "You're defending her over your own reputation? Over your future?" Damien stared at her. "My future is none of your business." Evelyn's smile shattered. "So you're choosing her?" "I'm choosing the truth," he replied. For a heartbeat, Maddie believed everything might be okay. Then Evelyn played her next card. She lifted her phone, screen glowing with a photo Maddie in the service hallway earlier that night, holding a velvet jewelry pouch identical to the one containing the Patek Philippe watch. The room erupted. Maddie's breath vanished. She'd never seen that pouch before. How, when, who? Damien's jaw flexed, rage flickering like lightning. "That picture," he said coldly, "is edited." Evelyn's lips curled. "Tell them that. See who believes you." The guests watched Maddie with hungry eyes, waiting, judging, devouring her fear. Every insecurity she'd buried clawed its way up her throat. Maybe she didn't belong here. Maybe she had ruined everything. Maybe Damien was paying too high a price. "Mr. Blackwood," she whispered, "please let me leave." Something inside him cracked, visible, painful. Before he could answer, Maddie slipped out of the coat, placed it gently in his hands, and stepped back. "I won't be the reason your world burns," she said, voice trembling. "I'm sorry." And then she walked toward the elevator alone, shaking, devastated. What she didn't see was the way Damien's entire face changed, as if losing her was the one thing he could not allow. The elevator doors slid shut around Maddie, but the echo of her voice, "I won't be the reason your world burns," kept ricocheting inside Damien's chest long after she disappeared. He stood frozen in the hallway, coat still in his hand, unable to breathe past the sharp, unfamiliar ache carving into him. Marcus approached carefully. "Sir, she's gone." Damien didn't answer. Couldn't. Because for the first time in years, he felt the same helplessness he'd sworn he'd never feel again. The night his first love died. A memory he buried under concrete and steel shoved its way back into him like a knife. He remembered the blood, the sirens, the way he couldn't protect her from the world he belonged to. He had vowed never to care again, never to feel again. And now, Maddie, fragile, brilliant, terrified, Maddie had torn that vow apart without even trying. Evelyn's heels clicked across the marble. She approached with a triumphant calm, as if she had expected this outcome all along. "She did the right thing, Damien. She walked away. Now we can salvage your public image before the rumors spread further." His eyes snapped to hers, empty of warmth, but blazing with something far more dangerous. Evelyn stepped closer, voice softening into something venomous. "You've been distracted, weak. Everyone sees it. This obsession with your maid, it's embarrassing. Beneath you." Marcus braced subtly, sensing the explosion brewing beneath Damien's stillness. Evelyn pressed on. "We can fix this. Together. Our engagement announcement is scheduled for next month. The photographs will bury tonight's scandal. There, it was the real motive. She didn't want him. She wanted the empire attached to his name." Damien's voice came low, controlled. "Send me the original files of the photo you showed the guests." Evelyn blinked. "What?" "You heard me." She forced a laugh. "Damien, surely you don't think I said," he repeated, "send them." For the first time all evening, Evelyn's mask slipped. A flash of fear or maybe anger cut through her perfect smile. "I don't have them on me," she said. Marcus stepped forward. "We checked your phone earlier. That image wasn't taken tonight." Evelyn stiffened. She realized too late that she had pushed too far. Damien took a step closer, voice dropping to a promise that made even the walls seem to tense. "If you fabricated evidence to destroy her, I will find out." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "And if I did?" Damien didn't blink. "Then I won't be the only one whose world burns." And in that chilling moment, Evelyn understood. Maddie hadn't weakened Damien at all. She had awakened the part of him Evelyn should have feared most. The cold wind hit Maddie the moment she stepped outside the penthouse tower, but the ache in her chest drowned out everything else. Her scarf whipped across her face as she hurried toward the subway, tears hot against the winter air. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she did, she might break completely. Across the river in Jersey City, Noah Carter stared at his cracked MacBook Air, refreshing the same data window for the 50th time. His heart hammered. Something wasn't right. He'd been checking Maddie's phone location ever since her panicked text, "I'm leaving the party. Something's wrong." Noah wasn't a professional hacker, but he knew enough to sense danger in the sudden traffic spike on Maddie's cloud backup. Someone had accessed her files, deleted things, added things, and then he saw it. A folder he didn't recognize, time-stamped 5 minutes before Maddie supposedly stole the Patek Philippe watch. Noah clicked it open. Inside were screenshots, edited images, and metadata from software he recognized from his part-time repair shifts at the Apple Store programs used for altering EXIF data, forging timestamps, and blending layers of digital photos so realistically that only a trained eye could tell. "Someone framed her," Noah whispered. Then something made his stomach drop. One of the files wasn't just metadata, it was video. He hit play. Evelyn Drake stood in the penthouse's private lounge, holding the exact velvet jewelry pouch she later accused Maddie of stealing. Her voice was low, amused. "People like her always fall the fastest," she said. "Damien will believe what I tell him. He always does." Another voice entered the frame mail, older, cold. "Make sure the girl doesn't come back. We can't risk Damien losing focus before the board vote." Noah froze. Damien's uncle, Charles Blackwood, the man next in line if Damien ever stepped down. Noah grabbed his phone with shaking hands and called Maddie. She picked up on the third ring, breathless. "Noah? I'm heading home." "Don't," he said urgently. "Maddie, listen to me. Evelyn and someone else are setting you up. They made fake photos and videos, and it's bigger than you think." Maddie stopped walking, fear crawling up her spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Noah whispered, "they weren't just trying to ruin your life." A beat. They were trying to break Damien. And as the train rumbled into the station, Maddie realized she was caught in a war she never saw coming, and someone had just declared the next attack. The gala had finally thinned, but the poison Evelyn released into the room lingered like smoke. Damien stood near the towering windows, Manhattan glittering behind him, fury simmering beneath his calm exterior. He'd sent Marcus to gather every piece of security footage from the night. He needed answers. He needed truth. But what he received instead was a threat he never saw coming. Marcus returned, jaw tight. "Sir, you need to see this." Damien followed him into the private office. The lights dimmed automatically, revealing a large monitor already cued with a paused video. Damien recognized the hallway instantly, the service corridor outside the guest suites. "Play it," he ordered. Marcus hesitated. "It's not real." Damien's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The footage started. Maddie stood in the hallway, biting her lip nervously. Damien entered the frame, but it wasn't the real moment from earlier. In this clip, Damien stepped close, too close, and cupped her face with both hands. Maddie's expression was soft, intimate. Then he kissed her. A long, slow kiss that any viewer would interpret as a forbidden affair. Damien felt something inside him turn to ice. That never happened. Marcus nodded. It's a deep fake. Perfectly blended. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Damien leaned closer, jaw tightening. The shadowing was flawless. The angle matched exact camera placement. The audio fake, but nearly convincing. If this were released, the tabloids would erupt, investors would panic, Evelyn would accuse him of impropriety, and Maddie's sweet, terrified Maddie would be devoured. Who had access to this camera feed? Damien asked. Marcus swallowed. Only 3 people. Me, the IT director, and Charles Blackwood. Damien went still. His uncle. His own blood. The man who'd once told him, emotion is the crack that breaks the empire. Marcus continued, Sir, this video didn't come from inside our system. It was injected. By Evelyn? Damien asked. Not alone, Marcus said. This level of manipulation requires resources and motive. Damien's hands curled into fists. First Maddie freezing outside, then the watch, then the photo, now this. Piece by piece, someone was dismantling his control. Where is Evelyn now? Damien asked. In the East Wing, Marcus replied. Waiting for you. Damien stepped toward the door, expression carved from cold fury. Let her wait. Marcus frowned. Then where are you going? Damien's voice dropped to a quiet, lethal calm, to protect the one person they're trying hardest to destroy. Because if this deep fake leaked before dawn, Maddie's life wouldn't just crumble, it would be annihilated. Maddie sat alone on the nearly empty PATH train, hands clasped in her lap, watching the blur of tunnels flick past. Every vibration of the rails echoed the tremor in her chest. She tried to breathe steadily, but her mind replayed the night in brutal fragments. Evelyn's lies, the guests' stares, Damien's expression when she walked away. Her phone buzzed. Noah. She answered with a shaky whisper. Please tell me you're safe. I'm fine, he said. But Maddie, you need to listen. The people framing you, they're not just targeting you. They're targeting Damien. Someone wants him compromised before the board meeting next month. Her heart stopped. Why? Why drag me into it? Because you got close to him, Noah said. Closer than anyone else has in years. And that makes you leverage. Her eyes burned. I didn't get close. I was just trying to do my job. No, Noah interrupted gently. You care about him, and he cares about you. They saw that long before either of you did. She pressed a hand to her forehead. That doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It does when you're fighting billionaires and mafia families, Noah muttered. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again, another call. Damien's name flashed across the screen. Her breath caught. Noah, what do I do? Answer him, he said. He's the only one strong enough to protect you. But Maddie stared at the glowing name, her thumb hovering. Something inside her cracked open, a mix of longing and fear. She ended the call. Noah cursed softly. Mads, why? Because getting close to him is what put us here, she whispered. I won't drag him down with me. I can't survive that guilt. The train screeched to a stop at Newport Station. Maddie stood, pulling her thin coat tighter, trying to convince herself she'd done the right thing. Damien's world was dangerous, complicated, full of shadows she couldn't navigate. Maybe walking away was the only way she could protect him. But as she stepped onto the platform, cold air slamming into her, another thought she didn't want to admit crept in. Maybe she was also trying to protect herself from how deeply she had begun to feel for him. Behind her, back in Manhattan, Damien stared at the unanswered call, his expression carved with something raw. And in that moment, each of them believed the same heartbreaking lie that letting go was safer than holding on. Snow fell quietly over the Hamptons, blanketing the luxury vacation estate in a deceptive calm. Maddie shivered as she stepped out of the black SUV that had pulled over after she accepted a ride, believing the driver was sent by Noah. The message she'd received looked like Noah's number. It wasn't. Her breath fogged in the freezing air as she looked around the silent property. "Noah?" she called softly. Only the wind answered. Inside the house, every light was off. The glass walls reflected the moonlight, giving the place an eerie glow. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. She took a hesitant step forward. A shadow moved behind her. "Maddie Carter," a man's voice drawled, cruel amusement threading through it, so trusting, so predictable. She turned, heart slamming against her ribs. Two men approached, faces masked, steps slow and deliberate. "Who are you?" she whispered. One man lifted a ski pole, then tilted it just enough to show the sharpened end. "We're here to solve a problem, sweetheart. Evelyn wants loose ends tied." Maddie backed away, breath staggering. "Please, I didn't do anything." "Exactly," he smirked. "And that's the problem." They cornered her near the icy slope behind the estate, the same slope Evelyn had chosen precisely for this moment. One shove and Maddie would slide straight down the steep drop, breaking bones or worse. The wind whipped harder as panic closed around her throat. "Don't do this," she begged. "Please, please don't relax," the man said. "It'll look like an accident. No one will ask questions about a maid who wandered too far." He lifted the pole. A scream tore from Maddie's throat, and a gunshot split the night. The masked man stumbled, dropping the pole. The other froze as a dark figure emerged from the tree line, steps deadly, precise. Damien Blackwood. His long coat snapped behind him like a shadow with purpose, his eyes colder than the snow beneath their feet. "Touch her," Damien said, voice a razor, "and you won't see the sunrise." The men bolted in opposite directions. Damien didn't chase them. He ran to Maddie. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing as he held her against his chest, his heart racing as violently as hers. "I shouldn't have left," she cried. "I thought pushing you away would keep you safe." He cupped her face, breath shaking. "You think I care about safety when it comes to you?" She looked up, eyes wide, broken. Damien's voice cracked. "I'm here because losing you is the only thing I can't survive." Damien didn't let go of Maddie for a long moment. His arms were wrapped around her so tightly, it felt like he was afraid she might vanish again. Only when her sobs softened did he pull back enough to search her face, snow dusting their hair like shattered diamonds. "You're safe," he murmured. "I've got you." But Maddie shook her head. "No, you don't understand. They said Evelyn wasn't working alone. Someone else, someone close to you I know," Damien said, his jaw tightening. Marcus traced the deepfake's origin, and Noah sent me the files he found. At the mention of her brother, Maddie stiffened. "Noah, is he okay?" "He's fine," Damien assured her. But he uncovered something I should have seen earlier. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small drive, the one Noah had sent with encrypted footage. Damien plugged it into his phone, the screen glowing in the dark night. The video played. Evelyn's voice drifted out first, sharp and triumphant. "Damien will believe anything I tell him. Once the scandal breaks, the board will have to remove him." Another voice entered deep, practiced, dripping with entitlement. "Charles Blackwood." Maddie gasped. Damien's uncle, a man who smiled like a mentor but watched Damien's every move like a vulture planning a landing. Charles continued, "We let the maid take the fall. Damien's emotional weakness will do the rest. By next quarter, the company is mine." Maddie covered her mouth. "They were never trying to ruin me. They were trying to ruin you." Damien's eyes remained locked on the screen, but rage radiated from him like heat from a wildfire. "They saw you as collateral damage. Disposable." "I'm so sorry," Maddie whispered. "I didn't know. If I had, you think this is your fault?" Damien turned to her, expression breaking open with something raw, fierce. "Maddie, this only happened because I failed to protect you. I should have seen Evelyn's games. I should have stopped Charles years ago. You can't blame yourself." "I can," he said softly, "and I do." Maddie's eyes filled with tears, but before she could speak, Damien cupped her cheek with a tenderness that contradicted the storm inside him. "This ends tonight," he promised. "No more traps, no more lies, no more running." "How?" she breathed. Damien slid the drive into his pocket, resolve hardening in his gaze. "By exposing them," he said, "publicly." A branch snapped in the forest behind them, loud, deliberate. Maddie froze. Damien reached for her hand, because the people who tried to kill her weren't finished yet, and they weren't alone anymore. The snap of the branch was followed by heavy footsteps crunching through frozen snow. Damien instantly shifted, pulling Maddie behind him as two figures emerged from the tree-lined men in dark coats, the same men who had tried to push her off the slope minutes earlier. But this time, they weren't approaching. They were running. Behind them, floodlights exploded through the darkness, washing the woods in blinding white. SUV doors slammed. Voices shouted orders. Marcus Hale stepped into view, a gun drawn, his breath fogging in the icy air. "Mr. Blackwood," Marcus called, "we've secured the perimeter. They're not getting away this time." The two attackers dropped to their knees, hands raised as Blackwood's security closed in. Maddie clutched Damien's arm, heart pounding. "How did they find us?" "I put a tracker in the SUV the moment I learned you were missing," Damien said, voice taut with adrenaline. "I wasn't letting you disappear into the dark." As the attackers were cuffed, Marcus approached, face grim. "They're ready to talk." One of them cracked already. He says Evelyn ordered the hit under Charles Blackwood's approval. Maddie's stomach lurched. Damien's expression hardened like stone. "This ends now," he said. Within 2 hours, the Blackwood corporate boardroom, usually reserved for billion-dollar negotiations, was filled with silent, blinking executives who'd been dragged from holiday vacations for an emergency meeting, Damien framed as a matter of life and death. Evelyn arrived furious and flawless, escorted by her legal team. Charles Blackwood followed, pretending irritation rather than fear. "What is the meaning of this?" Evelyn demanded. Damien didn't answer with words. He nodded to Marcus. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered on, and Noah's video began to play. Evelyn's voice echoed through the room. "People like her always fall the fastest. Damien will believe anything I tell him." Then Charles's voice, "By next quarter, the company is mine." Gasps broke across the table. Chairs scraped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Evelyn's face drained of its polished glow, collapsing into something wild and desperate. "This is doctored," she hissed. Damien stepped forward, placing the encrypted drive on the table. "It's authenticated. Every byte," Charles stood abruptly. "You cannot prove, Marcus?" Damien said. The doors opened. Detectives walked in. "Charles Blackwood, Evelyn Drake." One announced, "You are under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and corporate fraud." Evelyn lunged toward Damien, voice cracking. "You're throwing away everything for that girl?" Damien looked her in the eye. "I'm protecting the only innocent person in this entire room." The officers pulled them away, their protests echoing uselessly down the gleaming hallway. Maddie, standing near the doorway, exhaled for the first time in days. And in that moment, justice finally began to feel real. The storm finally passed, not just the one in the Hamptons, but the one that had swallowed Maddie whole for weeks. After the arrests, after the testimonies, after hours of interviews where her voice shook but never broke, she found herself stepping into her grandfather's small apartment in Jersey City with a sense of freedom she didn't yet know how to hold. The heater rattled softly. The smell of chamomile tea drifted from the kitchen, and her grandfather, fragile but smiling, opened his arms as she walked in. "My girl," he whispered, "you're safe." The words cracked something open inside her. She sank into his embrace, breathing in the comfort she'd missed so badly. For the first time in days, Maddie let herself cry, not from fear, not from shame, but from relief. Noah entered behind her, his laptop tucked under his arm. "I told you," he said gently, nudging her shoulder. Truth survives longer than lies. She smiled through tears. Thank you for everything. Noah shook his head. Don't thank me. Thank the man who nearly burned Manhattan to the ground trying to find you. Her breath caught. Damien. She hadn't seen him since the boardroom confrontation. He'd looked powerful, controlled, but also exhausted in a way she recognized, because caring costs, and he had paid a price for her. Maddie turned toward the foggy apartment window, watching snow fall under the yellow streetlights. I don't know what I am to him, she whispered, or what happens next. Noah set the laptop on the table and sat beside her. Mad's men like Damien don't fight wars for people they don't care about. Her chest tightened. But I'm nobody. No. Noah's voice was firm. You're the first person who's ever seen him as more than a title. That makes you everything. Silence settled between them, warm, healing. Later that night, Maddie sat alone with her Kindle, trying to read, but her mind drifted. She remembered Damien's hands on her shoulders, the way he shielded her with his body, the rawness in his voice when he said losing her was the one thing he couldn't survive. Her heart fluttered painfully, but fear lingered. To fear of stepping into a world where she didn't belong. Just as she closed the Kindle, a soft knock echoed at the door. No one visited this late. Not here. Not in this building. Maddie's pulse quickened as she stood and opened the door, and there he was, Damien Blackwood. Snow in his hair, eyes full of something she'd never seen so clearly. Longing. Snowflakes trailed in behind Damien as he stepped into the small Jersey City apartment, the soft glow from the hallway light outlining him like something unreal. Maddie stood frozen, one hand still on the doorknob, her breath catching as if her heart had forgotten what to do next. He looked different. Not the impenetrable billionaire, not the Mafia-shadowed king of Manhattan. Tonight, he looked human, tired, hopeful, and heartbreakingly unsure. Maddie, he said quietly, I didn't know if you'd open the door. She swallowed. I didn't know either. For a moment, neither spoke. The heater hummed. Snow tapped the window pane. A single streetlight flickered outside like it was waiting for her answer, too. Damien took a slow step forward. I came because I owe you something. The truth. She tried to look away, but he gently lifted her chin with 2 fingers, careful, almost reverent, like she might break. I spent my whole life believing feelings were weaknesses, he said. That caring made you vulnerable. But the truth is, not caring is what destroys you. Her eyes softened, tears gathering. I didn't protect you because you work for me, he continued. I protected you because losing you felt like losing everything I didn't know I wanted. A tear slid down her cheek. Damien caught it with his thumb. I'm not from your world, she whispered. I don't have power. I don't fit in. He shook his head, stepping closer until his forehead rested gently against hers. You are the only thing in my world that makes sense. Her breath trembled. What happens now? Damien pulled a small velvet box from his coat, not flashy, not extravagant, simple, meaningful, chosen, not for empire, but for her. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said softly. I just want you to know what my intentions are. He opened the box, a delicate ring, timeless, quiet, beautiful. Maddie gasped. I want a life with you, Damien whispered, not because you were caught in my world, but because you changed it. You changed me. Her tears fell freely now, but her smile bloomed through them, warm, trembling, full of belief she'd never allowed herself before. She threw her arms around him, burying her face against his chest. Damien held her with a softness no one else had ever seen from him. Damien, she breathed, I want that life too. Outside, fireworks cracked over the Hudson New Year's Eve, arriving as though the world itself was celebrating their beginning. And for the first time, Maddie stepped into a future she truly deserved, one built not on survival but on love. And just like that, our story comes to an end. But you're still here with me, aren't you? If you've stayed all the way until now, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. So let's take a moment, just the two of us, to look at what this story is really telling us. Life throws storms at everyone. Sometimes the kind that freeze you to the bone, the kind that make you feel small or forgotten. But as Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle is the way. The things that break us also shape us. Just like Maddie, we don't survive because we're strong from the start. We survive because we learn to stand back up, one painful moment at a time. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control cruelty, betrayal, or the noise of the world, but we can control what we choose to believe about ourselves. And Maddie won, not because she fought harder, but because she held on to her dignity when others tried to steal it. So if you're going through something right now, remember this: you deserve love. You deserve protection. You deserve a future that feels warm and safe. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And hey, if this story reached you even a little, do me a favor. Like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. I'm still here, and I'm glad you are too.